Why does your cat seem soft, loving, and completely at peace one moment, only to suddenly turn and bite the very hand that was comforting it the next? What if that bite was never an act of anger? What if it was never betrayal? What if your cat was not being dramatic, moody, or ungrateful at all? What if, in truth, your cat had been whispering, "Please stop," long before its teeth ever touched your skin? One moment, your white British short hair is curled in your lap like a perfect little cloud, warm, trusting, peaceful. Its eyes are half closed. Its body feels heavy with comfort. It might even be purring softly, melting into your touch. And then, in a flash, it turns and bites you. Not hard enough to truly injure you, but enough to leave you stunned. Enough to make your heart sink, enough to make you wonder, why would you do that? Most when I was only loving you. For so many cat owners, this moment feels personal. It feels confusing. It feels like rejection, almost like heartbreak in miniature. But hidden inside that tiny bite is something most people never realize. Your cat is not turning against you. Your cat is trying to speak to you. And once you understand what that bite really means, you may never look at your cat the same way again. Because in most cases, that bite is not an attack. It is not revenge. It is not your cat suddenly switching personalities. It is communication. Clear, honest, urgent communication. Especially with British Shorthairs, those quiet, elegant, emotionally subtle cats. This misunderstanding happens all the time. They often look calm, even when they are no longer comfortable. They can seem gentle, composed, and relaxed on the outside, while their nervous system is slowly reaching its limit underneath. That is why the bite feels sudden to you. But to your cat, it was not sudden at all. Long before the bite, there were signs. Small signs. Silent signs. Easy to miss signs. Maybe the tail began to twitch, just slightly. Maybe the ears turned sideways. Maybe the skin along the back gave a tiny ripple. Maybe the pupils widened just a little. Maybe your cat turned its head and looked at your hand more carefully. And yet the purring may have continued. That is what confuses people most, because we are taught to think purring means happiness. That purring means, yes, keep going. More of this. I love this. But cats are more complex than that. Sometimes a cat purrs because it feels safe. Sometimes because it feels content. And sometimes because it is overwhelmed and trying to soothe itself through an intense emotional moment. So yes, your cat may still be purring, even while it is beginning to feel overstimulated. And that is the truth behind so many of these bites. Not hatred, not betrayal, not a sudden emotional collapse. Just a body that has quietly crossed from pleasure into overload. Cats do not experience touch the way humans do. We often pet with emotion. We pet because we feel love. We keep going because the moment feels tender and beautiful to us. But cats experience touch in much shorter, more precise windows. Your cat may have loved the first few strokes, truly loved them. And then, just seconds later, the same touch may have started to feel too intense. What changed? Not love, not trust, just the nervous system. And this is often called petting-induced overstimulation, and it is far more common than most owners realize. A cat can go from comfort to discomfort incredibly fast. What felt soothing a moment ago can suddenly feel unbearable. And when that happens, the bite becomes the final sentence in a conversation your cat has been trying to have with you all along. Your cat may be saying, "That's enough now. Please stop. I need space. I still love you. But I can't handle more of this right now." That is a very different message from aggression. In fact, many of these bites are surprisingly controlled. They are often quick, measured, and restrained. Not the kind of bite meant to destroy trust, but the kind meant to protect a boundary. Your cat is not trying to hurt you deeply. Your cat is trying to make the sensation end. And once you understand that, something shifts. The bite stops feeling like rejection and starts feeling like honesty. British Shorthairs, in particular, often love closeness in a very quiet way. They may adore sitting beside you, resting on your lap, following you from room to room, watching you in silence, sharing space with you as if your presence alone is enough. Because sometimes, for them, it is. They may want your company more than your hands. They may want nearness more than constant touch. They may choose you completely, while still wanting strict control over how physical affection happens. And that is not coldness. That is simply their style of love, a style many humans misread. We often assume that if a cat comes close, it must want endless petting. But your cat may be choosing your lap, not an unlimited stream of strokes. Choosing your warmth, not your movement. Choosing to be near your heart, not overwhelmed by your hands. Some parts of the body also become too sensitive more quickly than others. Many cats tolerate brief strokes on the cheeks, chin, and forehead far better than repeated petting along the lower back or near the base of the tail. Some cats dislike long sweeping motions. Some dislike rough fabric. Some dislike dry hands. Some are more sensitive when sleepy, anxious, sore, or overstimulated by noise, visitors, or changes in routine. And sometimes, what looks like a behavior problem is actually pain. If your cat suddenly starts biting in situations where it never used to, or reacts strongly to being touched in certain areas, it is important to consider a veterinary checkup. Because arthritis, dental pain, skin irritation, or hidden injury can transform normal touch into something frightening. Cats are masters at hiding pain. They rarely cry out in obvious ways, so their behavior often speaks first. That is why observation matters so much. Do the bites happen only during long cuddle sessions? Only when you touch a certain area? Only at night? Only when your cat is tired or stressed? A pattern means your cat is not being random. Your cat is being clear. And once you begin to see that pattern, trust has a chance to grow again. Because then, instead of reacting after the bite, you can respond before it ever happens. And that changes everything. The answer is not punishment, not yelling, not pulling your hand away in anger, not making your cat feel guilty for having a limit. Punishment does not teach understanding. It teaches fear. It teaches your cat that touch is unpredictable, that closeness leads to tension, that being near you may come with emotional risk, and that slowly erodes the very trust you are trying to build. The kinder response is much simpler. Stop sooner, touch more gently, pause more often, listen more carefully. Think of petting not as a long performance, but as a quiet conversation. 2 or 3 soft strokes, then a pause. Watch the tail. Watch the ears. Watch the eyes. Watch whether your cat leans back in or pulls away. If your cat leans into you, that is an invitation. If your cat stiffens, flicks the tail, turns the head, or becomes still in a different way, that is information. That pause is not rejection. That pause is respect. And in the world of cats, respect is one of the purest forms of love. And this is why the idea of consent matters so much with cats. Not as a human projection, not as a cute concept, but as something practical and real. Your hand should feel like a question, not a demand. An offer, not an assumption. Some cats feel safer when approached from the side instead of from above. Some relax more when you simply sit near them without touching them at all. Some would rather share silence than endure too much affection. And often, when you finally allow a cat that freedom, the freedom to choose, the freedom to pause, the freedom to say no, something beautiful happens. The defensiveness softens, the pressure disappears, and trust deepens. Because now your cat no longer has to shout. Now your cat can whisper, and know you will hear it. That is when the relationship changes. Petting becomes shorter, but sweeter, gentler, but more meaningful, less constant, but more welcome. Your cat begins to feel safer, not because its personality changed, but because your understanding changed. And maybe that is the real lesson hidden inside the bite. Your cat was never trying to hurt your feelings. Your cat was trying to protect its comfort, trying to preserve its balance, trying to tell you the truth in the only language it had left. So the next time your cat seems loving one moment and bites the next, try not to see a traitor. See a sensitive nervous system. See a boundary. See a message. See a small, silent being doing its best to be understood. Because once you learn to hear the warning in the twitch of the tail, the turn of the head, the ripple of the skin, the tension beneath the purr, the bite stops being a mystery. And it stops being betrayal. It becomes something much more tender than that. It becomes honest communication,